Championship. Coming into Ontario Motor Speedway, Ontario, California that year, only one man, Gary Beck, had a chance to rob Garlits of his dream of being the world champion. With one run, Garlits became the first person to go over 250 miles per hour, set an elapsed time record of 5.63 seconds that would stand for 7 years, and won the World Championship.
Done on October 12th, 1975. Did you have any feeling when you got up that Sunday morning and headed for Ontario Motor Speedway that the day would have that kind of impact on you and drag racing?
Well, I didn't think that it was going to be quite that dramatic. I had told my wife the night before when we went the 570, 249, and of course Gary had went the 569.
And you're battling for the World Championship.
We were battling for the championship. The stage was set for a very dramatic day, and we went back to the motel that night and put the high compression engine in the car. Of course, you know, as the well-laid plans of mice and men all go astray, you know, it could have blown right up. But as it was, it didn't. It made the run, and it was a run that stood for an awfully long time.
And after those 7 years, I remember the night the record was broken. It was the Summer Nationals in Englishtown, New Jersey, Paul Candise's car with Mark Oswald driving. When Candise saw the number on the scoreboard, he said, "Oh, no, Big Daddy's going to be mad at me when he hears about this." And I said, "Paul, wherever he is, a little tremor just went through it, you know."
Well, I knew the record was going to be broken. Several people had actually done half of it. You know, they just were not able to back it up.
Jeb Allen did it and couldn't get the back up.
Exactly.
Let's go back a little bit. What records prior to this were particularly important to you?
Okay, let's go right back to the beginning. The first record that was really important was, of course, the 176.4 that Swamp Rat won.
Which Hot Rod Magazine really capitalized on.
Yeah, you know, and that was just unbelievable. Then we went 180 and 190, but that really wasn't like that first one. Then the next really big record for me was the 240-mile-an-hour time that I turned in one of the Winds Chargers later. And, of course, then the sport struggled along for years and years in that 240 range. We went 244 and 245, and there wasn't much made out of it. And really, you know, there had been a lot of runs at 249.30, but that 250 was kind of like a milestone in the sport. And so really, as it stands out in my mind 3 times, the 250, the 240, and the 176.
How important to you was it to be the first to do that 250?
It really became an obsession with me, really. We were so close. We were knocking on the door at lots of tracks. Like I said, we had a lot of 248s, a lot of 249. Just couldn't get that thing over the hump. And I knew that the Ontario Motor Speedway was a real good place to do it because we went to 247 there in 1973, 2 years earlier. And I really wanted that badly. And, of course, Beck was right there, too. You know, he had run a lot of 248s, and he was plenty capable of running at 250 miles an hour. So I really wanted to be the first over it.
You mentioned the high compression engine. Were there any other tricks in the car that day that made those times possible?
Yeah, it had the 370 gears in it, and I don't think anybody was running 370 gears. They were all running the 390 gears for elapsed time, and that kind of shut you off about 246, 247 for the size of tire. And then there was one other thing. When we were at Indianapolis, prior to that, when we'd won Indy, we had a set of tires mounted up there, our backup tires, and they were an exceptionally large set. They come through that way occasionally. And we had set that set of tires aside for Ontario to give us the gear ratio that we need. Because, see, we weren't running tires anywhere near the size we're running today. And so a larger tire was very important for us.
But really, that's what makes it so incredible. The tires were getting bigger and bigger, better and better, and still they couldn't touch that top.
Yeah, well, there was a lot to do with that. You know, the track was perfect. They sprayed them a little differently then. They had a guy that was spraying it, and he was just sloshing the VHT on there several days before. And those tracks were extremely sticky. And, of course, the weather conditions were right. I had a Bowers that made me a real nice blower, and it turned out just right. You know, as anyone will tell you, even today, one blower has like a fingerprint. There's no two of them alike. And so I had a real good blower. I had a good high compression engine. It was really nice, and I had a good tire, and I had the right gear ratio. And there was another thing I'd like to plug in there. I made the burnouts, you know. Prior to that, I had flipped the coins for lane choice, and I lost the choice for lane, and so the guy was going to time trial. I was in the time trial. He had just been oiled down. So I make the burnout, and I go out there, and I look outside the car, and it's all just white everywhere.
Grease sweep.
Yeah, it looked like grease sweep. And I just was shaking my head. So I go back to that. They push me back, and I'm shaking my head no to the crew. This is before reversers. And I sat there a few moments, and I don't know whether to run or not. Of course, it's building up more heat, which is good for it. Finally, I opted to run, and it went right out across that rice ash and carrying the front wheel. And so somebody says to me later, said, "Where did you get the traction for that run?" And I said, "Well," I said a little prayer prior to the run. I guess it was the hand of God just pushed it down to the pavement.